It's witchcraft.
Hey, it's 4:20 a.m. Hi, and welcome to the Stoned Witches Hour. I'm Laylla.
I'm high, but I'm also Chelle.
And today we have a guest, our very first guest ever. We have Tom from Storytime with Tom and Mike.
Hi. Thanks for having me on, guys.
I would just like to point out we're East Coast heavy tonight. So, the West Coast doesn't stand a chance, my friend.
Oh, all you need is one of me over here on the West Coast because it is definitely the best coast.
Oh, we're so excited to have you here, by the way.
I couldn't wait. In fact, I didn't sleep well, and I had butterflies in my stomach for about an hour prior to the show. And I was looking at my email, and I was like, when it comes up, should I click it right away or should I wait? Like, would that be weird if I just clicked it immediately? Like, I'll check out this game I downloaded last night. This isn't holding my interest at all. Fuck. What? I'll go out for another cigarette. It was terrible.
I admit I smoked several bowls doing the same thing, waiting for the email when we went on your show just recently.
Yeah. The episode title, it's episode 139, the guacamole debacle.
Yes, guacamole did come up, if I remember correctly.
Several times. Are those Peeps?
Easter's coming. Treats are out. I am about to snack on Tropical Burst Peeps. So I will be ready to review those momentarily. It's a peep lollipop.
Now that's a stoner's treat stick right there.
You just need a chocolate fountain to go with it.
Yeah.
It's a long wooden stick with 4 different colored peeps on it.
Is impaling a marshmallow peep part of the Easter tradition?
Uh-huh. And then you always eat them butt first.
Oh, all right. I am not a peep fan, but I'll take your word for it.
I'm not either, but do you have them in like Roy G. Biv order?
This is just how they were bought.
Oh, okay.
So,
they're not in Roy G. Biv order. Okay.
But I will say I did get something. I'm trying something new. They're Tropical Burst.
What
Peeps.
the hell is that monstrosity?
I'm going to find out, but I got to eat the lollipop first. And then I'm going to give a taste to the Tropical Burst Peeps. So I have Peeps and then I have my pretzel crisps.
Very nice. So you've got your munchies.
I do.
I belong to a Facebook group called Aggressively Bad Eating or something like that. I forget exactly what it's called, but it's like just like meme posts of different stuff people have eaten.
It's terrible.
That's like, how dare you even do that to yourself? One was a Cheetos milkshake. Can you imagine? I can't even imagine.
Well, I am now. Thanks, Tom. But no, I would prefer not to.
Who the fuck would drink a Cheetos milkshake?
Ew.
That's like crossing a line.
You could not get me stoned enough.
No.
I don't care what it is. You could give me Willie Nelson weed and I'd still be like, yeah, I'll pass.
I am not eating a Cheeto milkshake.
I'm with you.
Although that taco from Taco Bell with the chicken shell sounds pretty fucking good right about now, like that.
Fuck yeah. Hell yeah.
You have to be pretty stoned, but at the certain point, yeah, you have to hit a certain point. You have to be like smoking all day and really good shit. Like stuff that like sparkles when you look at it. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
That shit you like come by. Yeah, Snoop Dogg.
Or Mike Tyson weed.
Yeah. Do you know he has a brand of THC gummies?
Yeah.
And they're shaped like ears.
Holyfield's ear with a bite out of it. Yeah.
Yes.
I'm alternately amused and
disgusted.
Both ways.
Yeah.
It's about as tasteful as OJ's book. I didn't do it, but if I did, here's how I would.
I think the only way I'd be okay with it is if it was Evander Holyfield, right?
Yes.
If Evander's okay with it, I'm okay with it. I like Tyson. I do. And I'm happy that he's found
peace.
He's into the weed. He's into peace. He looks badass with the beard. Have you seen him lately with the beard?
No, I haven't.
No.
Man's looking pretty good. But I'm happy that he's found some semblance of he seems to be happy. And anybody that wants to grow weed and find happiness, I am down for.
Yeah, I agree. Well, apparently he made up with Holyfield a long time ago and recently came to him and it was like, hey, do I have your blessing to do this? And Holyfield was like, yeah, all right.
Okay.
I'm sure there was some monetary transaction involved as well that probably sweetened the pot, so to speak.
Well, then I'm going to stick with I'm amused. I'm going to go firmly with amused then.
Yeah, I think it's kind of cute in a way, you know. It's almost like an apology to the world. Like, yeah, I know I was fucked up. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, I kind of look at it that way too.
I mean, it was 25 years ago. He was in a terrible place, you know. I like to extend grace to people, often to the point where they don't deserve it. But yeah, that might be a fault on my part.
There's nothing wrong with second chances, but there is a point where you're being taken advantage of. I want to know what everybody is smoking today.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So we're gonna actually start with our guest Tom. So Tom, what are you smoking today?
Today I am smoking Hawaiian haze.
Ooh,
I like that.
Have you guys ever tried it?
I have not.
Interestingly, the strain I am smoking today is Pineapple Express, and that is a cross of Hawaiian with Trainwreck.
Oh, okay. Okay. So this is a cross of Hawaiian and haze, obviously. I actually pulled up a wikileaf.com article about it. It says many strains have exotic names while others have exquisite tastes. Then there are those whom possess both, such as Hawaiian haze. Wow, I don't know who wrote that, but that was hard to read.
So how is it for you as an experience?
It's very energetic. It's pretty creative. It makes me pretty chatty. A lot of dry mouth.
Dayweed.
Yeah, definitely dayweed. Not too many munchies, although haven't eaten yet, so I'm a little hungry. But a spiked level of paranoia, I will be honest.
And that's not because you're hanging out with two awesome witches?
No, you guys actually comfort me and put me at ease. I was a little nervous, but yeah, I feel very comfortable with you guys. No, cool. Last night, you know what it was? It was last night, this morning, who fuck knows. I decided I wanted to make my bong more presentable. So
that can be a challenge sometimes, depending on how long you have let that bong marinate.
I let it go way too long.
Yeah.
I'm talking probably like about 6 months worth of residue.
And you sound like me.
I'm terrible.
Oh, no.
Yeah. I just let it go. And it's so bad already. And I just cleaned it last night. See, that's what I want.
Layla's are like brand new clean all the time.
Well, all you need is rock salt and water. Or I mean, alcohol.
Alcohol, yeah. But it's a chore. It's a chore. Let's be honest here.
It is a chore, but it's worth it. And I think it also depends on the quality of the piece that you have. Because a lot of these bongs are made out of cheap fucking glass. That's
shit glass.
That's
glass.
It's porous. It's porous. Like you really need to.
The good borosilicate glass. You need good glass.
See, now my version of dirty bong water is like so black you can't even see through it.
Yeah.
Like I take it beyond. I'm one of those. You should have taken that away from me 4 months ago and cleaned it.
And she'll tend to throw them away. She used to throw them away.
Yeah, I used to throw them away before I'd clean them. I was just like, you know what? Fuck it. I'm just going to go buy a new one because I just can't even get that clean. Because I would use pieces until they were so clogged you couldn't pull a hit off them anymore.
Yeah, I've done that. In fact, last night, or not last night, but a couple days before, I took the stem and I have like a big, huge industrial sized bag of pipe cleaners. And I'm like in there with the thing and I'm cleaning the stem because I realized that it had extruded over time to take up half the circumference of the inside of the fucking stem.
Absolutely.
And I pulled out a pound of what looked like raw, like straight cancer. Just
Yeah.
it was horrible. And then I remembered the fact that there were days in my life when I did
When you used to smoke that.
Yeah.
Yes. Me too.
I've known people that smoke that.
Yeah.
Laylla would never do it. Laylla would never do it.
No, I'm not a fan. I have been very privileged in my life to not really ever be short if I didn't want to be short.
Yeah.
So I haven't really had to worry too much about it. You had mentioned you were smoking Hawaiian haze.
Yes.
And I'm smoking Pineapple Express, made famous by the Seth Rogen movie Pineapple Express.
Mm-hmm.
And it is also a Hawaiian descendant. I believe it's a train wreck and Hawaiian cross. It's also very uplifting. I like it because it helps me to stay energized and focused and helps to lessen some of that social anxiety. You know, you're very easy to talk to, Tom, but I'm definitely a hermit type person. I don't do great in social situations, just ask Chelle.
Yeah.
And so having something that helps me to feel a little more social and upbeat is definitely key here. So I like it for that. It's pretty tasty too.
Now, I went out today. I went to the store this morning. The rush of my day, I woke up late, had to go to the weed store, had to get my snacks, but I came across 3 things that I'd never heard of. And you know how I like the combination of high THC content and I've never heard of it before.
Something new. That's right. What'd you find?
You probably both have probably heard of at least one or more of these. So I got this Biscotti Super Fire. Anything with super fire in the name. And so we've talked about how most places around here provide awesome customer service and they will talk to you about weed for days. I said to the guy, he's like, well, there's this Biscotti Super Fire. I go, is it super fire? And he just looks me dead in the eye. He goes, super fire. And I'm like, what?
In that like stoner weed guy behind the counter way.
Yes,
I love it.
Yes.
I love dispensary employees. They're so laid back and cool.
And informative,
with no exception.
Chatty.
Yeah.
Where are you guys finding these exceptional? I feel really bad for my state here.
Really?
I've had some great weed tenders, some bud tenders, but for the most part, the bud tenders here they're not that interested. Next.
East Coast is the best coast. These people if they were allowed to smoke in the store, they'd be like, hey, you want to take a couple puffs? Let's both try it together here. Puff, puff, pass kind of thing. They're that friendly and willing to assist you.
Now the grow stores, the garden centers where I get like my soil, because I grow in dirt, get my soil, get my nutrients. They're pretty cool. They'll talk to me for days on end about weed, all aspects of it, but not so much in the dispensaries. You guys are very lucky with your bud tenders.
Yeah.
But there's more. So then he was like, well, we got this stuff called runts. And I was like, ooh, like the candy? And he goes, absolutely like the candy. He goes, it even has like a light candy flavor. I'm like, okay, you better not lie to me.
He lied.
You know how I get bitchy about the name versus the actual taste? But this is 35.77 THC. So I don't give a shit if it tastes like dog's ass.
You have got some amazingly high THC out there.
I don't care if it tastes like a dog's ass. I'm smoking the whole eighth. And I'm going to love it.
35?
That's
0.77.
Wow.
Yep. And there's more. I got one more. This one's called Mac 1. And this is a hybrid, by the way. Oh, I forgot to tell you. So Biscotti Super Fire is an indica. And then Runts hybrid. And this Mac 1 is a hybrid. But this one, 36.02 THC.
Chelle, I was this close. I think that's such a coincidence. I was this close to getting Mac 1 today.
Really?
This close. Yes.
And then I wrapped it all up with a pre-roll. This is also infused with butter, with D's, not T's.
That's right.
Butter, not butter.
The good stuff.
The good stuff. And this one is like 51.59.
Yummy.
My God.
I'm guessing you're a medical patient in PA?
Yes.
Tom. Now,
yes.
What's available in Pennsylvania is for medical patients retail?
It depends on the dispensary, but a lot of times it's like some store product. Like it seems to be like products that follow certain companies. Like, for
Like
example,
they grow their own kind of thing.
I think so, yeah. Or they get it from this another national supplier or something, and just slap their logo on it for a fee or whatever. You know how that shit works, basically. But it's kind of like when you buy the generic brand of beans, or the Boston baked beans, and it turns out to be they were canned in the same factory using the same source. So, it's just a matter of what labels on it.
Right. They just put a different name on it. That's what
Right.
you're paying for. And a lot of times I think you're right. That's what's happening with a lot of the cannabis that goes out.
I don't think that's the case here though in Massachusetts, because a lot of these places, like that one place I like, Happy Valley up in Gloucester, they grow on site where their retail establishment is. And you park your car and you get out of the car. And as you're getting out of the car, that smell hits you like a wall, because in one area is their grow warehouse, and then the other area is the retail place. A lot of these places here, they grow in production for their own store, and then like you go to one store and you can buy some from the other store. They kind of swap their brand. But a lot of the places here, each establishment has their own grow.
If you want to know what the color green smells like, go to a cannabis warehouse where it's wall to wall plants. And it's a distinct aroma. You'll definitely know what green smells like if you go to some place that grows cannabis, for sure. Now, do they have any type of distillates or concentrate on any of the shatters or butters?
Yeah, they have a fair amount of that. I find their lack of stuff kind of frustrating. And to be quite honest, in Pennsylvania, at least, the price point is so high that I, without incriminating myself, find that it's better not to go to a dispensary.
Understandable. Can you say roughly what like a gram is in a dispensary?
Per gram. Let's see. Let me do some math here.
Oh, how do they know? Do they normally sell it in higher amounts, like half?
They'll sell it in 3.5 grams, 7 grams, and sometimes in like 14 grams. Okay. So nothing more higher than that.
I'm actually kind of glad we brought this particular thing up, because I have a bitch today and I wanted to mention this bitch, and it is about exactly what you're talking about. And I have my receipt from this morning. I go to two different stores. One is a little bit further away. One's closer. Today I went to the closer one because I wanted to get with you guys. Both of these stores will advertise an eighth for $60, 3.5 grams for $60, which, first of all, remember the days when you could get 3.5 for $30?
Yeah.
Where are those days?
Yeah, exactly.
3.5 for $60. Now, if I go to the one that's about 20 minutes away, my fave place, they say $60, you roll up with $60, you get your eighth, you walk out. Now, the place I went to today that happens to be closer, you get a eighth for 60, and then you get to the register and the tax is on top of it. So at the first place, the 60 includes the tax. At the second place, the 60 does not. Now, granted, I got a couple of eighths today, but my total should have been X amount of dollars. Sales tax for cannabis, $13.38. Marijuana excise tax, $23.01. Local marijuana tax, $6.42. My total taxes for the day, just taxes alone, were $42.80.
They kind of hide that here in California. You just get the price that you pay. They don't tell you how much of it is taxes. It is quite a bit. And the eighths here, $60. That's more for higher end stuff. Do they have lower cost eighths, or is it just $60 straight across the board?
Well, my favorite store, when they say $60, the tax is included and you just pay 60 straight. They are also the place that has sales all the time. So I can sometimes get an eighth for either 39 or 45 as opposed to the 60 if you catch the sale. The way they advertise between the various retail establishments is they make it look like everybody's charging 60 an eighth, and they're not, because some of those places already include the tax and some put the tax on top of that. Why be shady motherfuckers? That is my issue. Like, their weed is not any better than the store 20 miles up the road, but yet I have to end up paying like fucking $72 after tax, when if I go up the road, it's $60 fucking flat even, which is still highway robbery.
Ours is graded. You can buy lower end middies and higher end, and it will be different prices, down to as little as like $25 an eighth. You can, obviously it gets cheaper as you buy in larger quantities. So if you're buying an ounce, you're going to pay much less.
Kinda, yeah, but not really here. And also the 36% THC weed is the same price as the 19% THC weed.
That would be different here.
There's no gate. It's 60 an eighth, period. 60 an eighth, no matter what you get.
Is it like that in Pennsylvania too? Is it all one price for everything?
It is, yeah. It's about volume and brand. So whatever the brand sets it as, it doesn't matter what type of, if it's a CBD or if it's a type of strain or whatever, it doesn't matter how much THC is in it.
The price is just the price.
It's a flat price, yeah. And I'll be honest with you, I was just doing the math here while you guys were talking about what you're paying, and I can get the same amount of weed not at the dispensary for half,
if not less than
literally
half.
Not less than that,
because I have a friend, she's not a dealer, she just smokes a lot of weed, and so she buys in bulk. And she just gets it from somebody, and I don't know that person, and I'm fine with that. It's a very casual thing that we just, hey, we'll hang out. And yeah, cool. I find it's every bit as good as the stuff that I've gotten in the dispensary, if not better.
It probably is.
That could be my imagination. So when you're as fried as I am, as often as I am, it's hard to gauge a high. Like, my friend is always like, I want you to try this. I want you to try this. You're going to love it. And I'm like,
and you're just like, meh,
I'm high.
Right.
Well, I'll just turn to her and I'll say like, yeah, I'm high. like, what more do you want from me? Yes, I'm high.
I was thinking about that a little bit sometimes when we talk about weed, because I do have a very high tolerance. I smoke for pain and for other reasons as well. So for that reason, I do tend to smoke quite a bit. And so a little bit, some of those nuances will be lost on me as I'm smoking. Like you're mentioning, weed is pretty much weed, but I do feel differences in different types of weed, maybe because I think what we've just been talking about is a huge reason why everyone needs to kind of grow their own and do that, because it's vitally important that we don't let this corporate everything take over what is essentially a weed that's very, very easy to grow.
Yeah.
One person can grow for a co-op, can grow for a group of people, and everyone can get their medicine or their recreational weed cheaply and easily, and it's clean and it doesn't have a shit ton of packaging. And we need to get away from that. Like the packages that Chelle was holding up, those are great and all, and it has a lot of information on it.
But they are like environmental killers.
There's too much. There's too much packaging. There's too much taxes. There's too much government involved. There's too much business involved. It's a fucking weed, and you should be able to grow it in your garden, and it should be very easy and way less regulated. In my
You should be able to walk into the grocery store and just buy a fucking stalk of weed, and it should be by the pound, and you just buy the whole plant.
Next to the celery.
Right.
If you want to go to the gourmet grocery store and get your gourmet stock of weed, great.
Yeah.
Right.
That's called Whole Foods.
That's right. Whole Foods for weed. Whole weed.
I would totally buy some potted weed plants just to take them, because then I don't have to worry about the initial process, which is always the hardest part, is getting started. Sort of a jump start to that, and then I learn as I go, harvesting from the next to the next.
Plants come to me to die. The starting isn't the hard part. The getting it going, getting the seed going, getting it to start, that's not the hard part. The hard part is okay, now that this thing is like 1.5 feet, 3 feet, 4.5 feet tall, now what? And then shit just dies because I just, that green thumb is not a part of me, I guess.
But anybody could grow it and should be able to grow it. I know in New York right now, it is legal for recreational as well as medical, and medical patients can grow, but legally they're not allowed to grow in New York yet until the dispensaries get first crack.
That's some bullshit.
It is some bullshit. But, of course, they want to give the business time to get established before they allow people to grow their own. And I think that's complete and total crap because it's very difficult for people to find it, whether they're medical or recreational at this time. And I think people should be allowed to grow it. And I just think it's ridiculous what they're doing.
Now, I would like to point something out that I think is very interesting, hard to ignore, is that, pot is easy to grow. Mushrooms are easy to grow,
Sort of. Got to do that sterilization thing really well.
Right. But what I mean is that they're things that take on in nature a very easy stance on survival as opposed to something more complicated, like a more like niche plant, so these things like what's another one, that the moss that grows on wheat, ergot.
Oh yeah, that
right?
Also will give you visions and can kill you in larger amounts.
Yeah, you don't really want to fuck around with ergot. No. But yeah, I mean, there, and then other stuff like ayahuasca, which is like a brew or a formula, but that's a little more complicated in my opinion. I'm talking about stuff that you just pick up off the ground
just pick up. Yeah, exactly.
And it's interesting how the universe provides us some of its most profound tools for understanding it right there on the ground. We're literally growing in shit, which is a metaphysical joke. Is such a wonderful joke on a metaphysical level. It's like, all right, here's the thing. You're going to learn more from shit than you ever learned from anything
else.
Wow.
I got this chillum this morning and it's called 413 Diesel. And this one is tapping out at 31.7% THC.
Oh yeah, that's my size queen.
Oh wow.
So I'm going to take a puff or two off of this and get ready to talk about some ghosty ghosts.
I think this is Chelle's way of saying we've been talking too long and we need to get into the ghosty spooky part.
We do.
Well, yeah.
We definitely do. Do you want to start us off with yours, Tom?
Sure. So I have quite a bit of notes, so I'll try to file this down into the most interesting stuff so this podcast stays under 6 hours. I grew up in a house in Hershey, very old house. I would say at this point, it's probably, well, I guess it was probably built in like 1890, 1880, something like that. Old farmhouse, brick, really nice steepled kind of roof, like a what do they call there's a term for it, a chapel roof.
Oh, okay.
Or that's not quite the right term for it. Cathedral. It's a cathedral.
It's like that's really steep.
Yes. Yeah. Very steep, like 2.5 stories high or something.
Wow.
Like, well, not that high, but I'm terrible with that kind of shit.
That's okay, but big, especially for a kid, probably.
Yeah, it added another story to the house completely, and it was a huge attic. So this house, I moved in there when I was in kindergarten, and when we first moved in, I don't remember anything really particularly awful happening. This seemed to happen when my sister and I got older. We started right around the time she was probably 8, and I guess that would have put me at about 12. Maybe younger than that. We started having shared dreams about some entity that lived in the basement and made this horrible sound like a locust.
That sounds terrifying.
Yeah, and I remember in my dream, which I never told her until she told me hers, because it was right around the same time too. My dream, I was down in the basement, and it was sort of an unfinished basement with a lot of tools, and stuff, and I was staring at a photograph of a bunch of World War II pilots in uniform standing in front of a plane. And as I'm looking at it, I hear this voice say, "Those are all the people who in the war who went missing." And then it gets dark and I look up and there's this faceless, glowing white entity standing there. And I was terrified and I woke up, screaming.
Oh yeah.
And then that same night I had dreams about locust noises coming from the basement. Well, then my sister, like a week later, was like, I had this crazy dream about the basement, and there were like these locust things living down there, and they were like made out of like shifting white light.
No way.
And I was like, that's so, yeah. And I was like, that's
Oh,
super
wow.
fucked up. That's a lot like the dream that I had. But that's
Now-
just surface level shit.
Did your basement make, like, in your waking state, did the basement make any type of weird noise? Is there some sort of like real life basis why you guys might have both been dreaming about that type of noise?
No, it did not.
That's wild.
Yeah, and it was, I don't believe it was during a time of year when the locusts were active either.
Yeah, because that's something you guys would have been able to place if
right. Right.
Now, did she see, I'm curious about the pilots that you saw. Did she see anything similar to that, or was it more the sound that she remembers?
She remembers the sound and something like a shapeless entity.
Wow.
Yeah. So, yeah, I actually called her the other day to get some more details on some of her stories, and she gave me a doozy, which I'll tell in a moment. But yeah, so this house, it seems like stuff mostly happened during the winter.
Interesting.
Yeah, like I feel like maybe the veil was thinner there for that place or something. There were two entities. There was Alice. We called her Alice. I remember I was sitting in my living room watching TV one day, and my mom and my sister. This house is sort of divided into 4 quadrants, rooms. They're all equal size, and there was the front room, which was in the front left, and then to the right was the living room, and then back from that was the dining room, and then sort of wrapped around on the other side of the staircase was the kitchen. So you couldn't see one room from the other. So my mom and my sister are playing some board game in the dining room. I'm in the living room watching TV, and I happen to look over and I see this little old woman standing at the base of the stairs, and she's smiling at me, and she's completely translucent and glowing like a blue color.
Wow.
And
holy shit. What did little you do?
Well, I was about 14, so I wasn't that young, but I just kind of went, whoa. And then it went away. And then I turned to my sister and I was like, did you guys ever see anything weird in the house? And they're like what? It's like an old lady. And they're like, oh yeah, that's Alice. All nonchalant, like, yeah.
Like they had already been seeing that they knew her. They're old friends.
Why did they call her Alice? Was Alice just what they decided to call her? Or was there someone that they were able to trace it back, some real person named Alice?
The woman who lived in the house prior to us was named Alice.
Okay.
And she died in the house.
Okay.
I believe she fell down some stairs and broke something, but I mean, I was very young when I moved in, and I really should have called my mom and done some more homework on this because I don't know the answer to that. But yeah, I think because we had a next door neighbor named Marianne who told us about Alice and how nice and kind, benevolent a woman she was. And it definitely matches up with my perspective of the person or entity that I saw,
Was that the only time you saw her?
Yeah. Although I strongly believe that she kept a watch on the place. Like she protected us, and she had something to protect us from, because there was another entity called I call it the Void. My sister, I told that to her, and she said, that's about a good enough name for it,
So she's seen the Void as well as Alice.
Oh, yes.
Was the Void in the shape of a body, so to say, or just more like a black blob?
A blob.
Okay.
Yeah, definitely. If I had to name it, I would say some kind of shadow person or iteration of shadow persons.
I'm getting chills. This
Oh, it's horrifying. So this thing just radiated darkness and anger and just negative energy, like hate. It was like a personification of fear.
Where would it normally appear? Did that at the bottom of the stairs as well, or in
No,
different
in
places?
bedrooms,
Oof.
yeah,
Oh,
especially in the attic bedroom. He'd like to show up in bedrooms. It showed up in bedrooms. I don't know why I'm calling it he. Yeah, I remember the mildest of the stories was my experience, so I'll go from there. I lived in the attic room until I left for the army in 97 or 96, somewhere in that vicinity. And I was up in my room, and I just opened my eyes, and there was this darkness floating over me. And it was just so consuming. And I
Wow.
was like, and I remember looking at it and going, I'm not afraid of you. Fuck you. And then I closed my eyes and I went back to sleep.
Did you notice if it went away, or did you just not give a fuck at that point?
I was like, fuck it. I've lived in this house this long. I've seen so much fucked up shit. This mine was a later encounter,
Mhm.
And I just decided, I was like, and this is weird. And my one friend from Peru often tells me this is true, is that I'm protected somehow. There's an entity, and I'll talk about that in a minute too. There's an entity watching over me. And I don't know
Interesting.
why. I don't know why. Maybe I have something important I'm supposed to do. I don't know, but
Yeah. Or someone, an ancestor looking out for you, or something
something like
that they
that.
want you to
Yeah.
do. Yeah.
I have my theories about who it is. I have two theories, but that's getting ahead of myself. So this thing's, yeah, it's floating over my bed, and I'm like, I remember saying to it, "Fuck you," and then just closing my eyes and rolling over and being like, and the next morning my eyes were all funky and like gum, like gooey, like
Honestly, the fuck you is a good enough spell. That's a
yeah,
spell right there. Telling
yeah, oh
them
yeah.
fuck you and then closing your eyes.
absolutely.
You have no power over me.
Yep.
You
Exactly.
have
That
no power over me.
if you
Yeah.
mean it, even a little bit, that's a very
Hmm.
powerful shield right there. So I'm
Well,
not surprised you were able to, but even with the little gunk and to show that there was something there the next day.
I've learned even better ways magically to deal with things like that since. But
Oh
another
yeah,
thing that I
that's
might have,
not a
yeah,
complex spell by any means.
not at all. But so my sister told me a story just the other day. She was up in that room after I moved out to join the army, and she was sitting on her futon and looking at her bed from across the room. And she's on the phone with her husband, who was then her boyfriend. And she said that this shadow came off the wall and slipped down into her bed and under her covers.
Holy shit.
Her
Yeah.
shadow or this.
A shadow just detached itself from the wall, took on form, and
No.
slipped under
Mm-mm.
the covers. And
No.
she said,
No.
I'm never sleeping in that room
I was gonna
again.
say that's when I'm done.
I wouldn't either. I'm out.
I'm not getting
Yeah.
in that bed.
No.
Yeah. No way. No way.
Although maybe it would be a cuddler. Maybe I'd try it during the daytime.
No, I don't want to go to. I'm sorry. It didn't ask permission first. You can't get in my fucking bed. No.
Yeah. Well, after you hear the story about my mom, then you're definitely not going to want to cuddle with this thing because it's nasty.
Oh shit.
It's a nasty motherfucker.
Oh no.
I was reading a book called Communion, a true story by Whitley Strieber. It's a story about alien abduction, which is like a whole nother podcast
Yeah, it
that we
sounds
could.
vaguely familiar. I may have touched on it when I was looking up Area 51 and stuff, possibly.
It's got the most freaky deaky picture of an alien that I've ever seen. There's something about it that's so haunting compared to every other picture I've ever seen of those types of aliens, the slanty-eyed ones. And it used to enthrall me as a kid, but it terrified me. So finally, as a teenager, I decided to read it. So I'm in bed and I'm reading it, and I'm up in the attic room. And I noticed this: when you are reading or absorbing material that's highly paranormal, it's like you open yourself up to it more. shit
Well, I
happens
agree. I
more.
think so too. Yes, because you
You're
get yourself
more
into that kind of
receptive.
state. Yes.
Yeah.
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 Yeah, more shit happens. So a lot of weird shit going on that summer. And I hear what sounds to me like kids goofing around downstairs on the first floor on the porch. Like I'm hearing like laughter and stomping feet. And I'm like, what the fuck? So I go downstairs and I fling open the porch door, turn on the light, nothing out there. I'm expecting like a flaming bag of dog shit or something.
Right.
There's
Some
nothing out
prankster or
there.
something there.
Yeah, nothing out there. I go back upstairs, lock the door, go back upstairs, and I pass by my mom's room, and I'm hearing like this really panicked sort of, dialogue going on. So I open the door, and here my dad is trying to console my mother, who is basically in the fetal position. And I'm like, is she okay? He's like, I don't know. I can't get her to calm down. I'm like, let me talk to her. I always had a way with her. So always have. And I guided her out to the other room, and we talked. And she told me that this thing was hanging over her in bed, and that it was just like worse than the devil. She said it was worse than anything she could imagine
Oh,
ever.
wow.
Similar to what I described and what my sister saw. Yeah.
Yeah.
And she said it wanted to eat her soul.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, and it was just so fucking. I mean, I'm I
Holy
miss.
shit.
I don't even know what to say at this point. It's just it's crazy the shit that I grew up watching and seeing. And
Does your family still own that house?
no, it's actually a hair cuttery now.
That's probably better. People
Yeah.
don't need to be waking up to like evil entities hovering over them or trying to
Yeah.
climb into their bed. So rude.
It was such a gorgeous house, though. I always wanted to turn it into like an authentic pub.
Did you ever did you or anyone in your family ever do any like research into the house or the property?
No, I should. I've also wanted to actually go to the business that it now is and ask them if they've seen anything, like,
Oh, yeah.
just under the pretense that I'm interested in hearing more about their experiences in the house because I grew up here,
Sure.
just shoot them an email or whatever. But
I imagine that Alice's neighbor is probably no longer with us, but I wonder if
No.
she had ever heard anything.
I don't know. I don't
Yeah.
know.
Maybe that entity is what threw her down the stairs.
You're not the first person to say that. My friend said that to me
And
yesterday.
that she was still in the house to
Yeah.
try to protect and counteract future residents from that blob.
It does sound like a protection that she was there to protect, especially since she was smiling at him and seemed to be very benevolent.
Right. But
I love that.
I don't know. I get the vibe that maybe that thing threw her down those stairs.
It's hard not to think that. I got to kind of wonder where that entity came from. I've been so enthralled, I've been forgetting to smoke.
Kind of along the lines of how Tom's was kind of about a childhood home. I real briefly wanted to tell you mine is a childhood home thing as well. My house that I grew up in, similar to Tom's, was kind of like a late 1800s, sometime in the 1890s it was built. I don't know exactly if it was 1891 or 1899, but sometime in the 1890s, my childhood home was built. Where I grew up, it was kind of one of the first houses, quote unquote, in my little town. This had been used as kind of like a modern day bed and breakfast, or I don't want to say hotel because, I mean, Laylla, you've been to my mother's house. I mean, I wouldn't call it a hotel.
No, bed and breakfast works.
Like a boarding house type situation. So it had been used as a boarding house. The founder of the little town I lived in had a daughter, and he had built this for his daughter to run. She was a single, never had children. So he built her this house to run as a boarding house. And that would be how she would kind of make her way in the world, was by having boarders. She always had men in and out because there was a military base up the street and some manufacturing. So in the early 1900s, this was a boarding house that was essentially kind of like the main place to get a room in that little area. So people in and out, but she had her own distinct bedroom. And so basically she had this one particular room in the house and all the other rooms were rented out. So, fast forward to the blessed year of 1975. This woman has now passed away in the house. Why do they always have to die in-house? Dies in the
I think
house.
it was much more common in the late 1800s, early 1900s. People didn't go to the hospital or hospice for the end of life as much as they do now.
Yeah.
So, yeah, exactly. They just stayed home. So she had like, I don't know, a relative, a nephew or a niece that kind of quote unquote inherited the house and just kind of left it as the boarding house and just kept the renters in it for another maybe decade or two. And then again, 1975, the glorious year, they decided to sell it. My parents buy it right before my birth, like literally like a week before I was born, they buy this house. So they kind of make it less boarding house, more we just had a baby kind of house. I would say about the time I was maybe 7 is probably my earliest recollection. We had it in the back of the house. It was a multi-story house. So on the floor that my bedroom was on, you'd walk up the stairs and there were 2 bedrooms, a bathroom, and then a room at the end of the house, end of the hallway. That was like the whole length of the house. It was this big, huge room. I mean, actually now present day, my mother's turned it into a laundry room. But at the time it was not a laundry room. And my bedroom was right next to that. And then the bathroom was straight across from me.
Okay.
I always felt like I was being watched. And I mean, as you know, a 7-year-old, 8-year-old, 9-year-old, even a teenager, are your parents watching you? I had a brother 6 years older, always snooping on me. But I always had this like unnerving sense of being watched.
In that one particular spot or all over in the house?
Never on the first floor, but on the second and third floor, yes. But never on the main floor, never like where the kitchen and living room was. Always where the bedrooms and the attic rooms were. One night with my bedroom straight across from the bathroom, I very distinctly remember getting up in the middle of the night when everyone else in the house was asleep and having to go to the bathroom. And being a tired little kid, walk out of my bathroom and something instinctually made me look to the left down to the end of the hall.
Oh, no.
Where the doorway to this long back room was.
Oh, no.
And I saw a woman standing there. And I just remember screaming and everybody in the house waking up and my mother going hysterical, what's wrong? And I'm like, there's someone in the house. And, everybody starts panicking and there's no one in the house kind of thing. And I'm like, she's there, Mom, she's there. And she's like, what did you say? I go, she's there. And she goes, what's she look like? And it just looked like, an older lady. Like, I don't want to say that beehive, but you know how in like the 40s and 50s and 60s, older women had kind of that updo beehive-y.
Yeah. That big bun thing on their head. Yeah.
But like that. And then like this long, I don't want to say like a maid looking dress, but it definitely was like a long dress with like a big apron over it. And my mother was like, did she look like so? And, some, she named out some things. And I was like, yep, that's exactly what I saw. She goes, she lives here. Go back to bed.
What? So your mom, wait a minute.
And my mom.
I do.
So this is very unlike her character because she is very much, she thinks ghosts and blah, blah, blah. She thinks it's a bunch of bullshit.
Did she literally mean this was a person that she couldn't have? I'm very confused.
As a young kid, I took it to mean that. And in retrospect, being the age I am, I still believe she meant that because, things would happen. And then it got to the point where, as I'm 8, 9, 10 years old, if I woke up in the middle of the night to go to the bathroom, I would start at my bed. I'd make sure my bedroom door was open and the bathroom door was open. And I would run as fast as I could.
Would you look down the hall?
Straight across that hallway. And I'd never look to the left. Never, ever, ever look to the left. Um,
But could you feel
and
her watching you when you did that?
yeah, and I felt like she knew I was up going to the bathroom.
I'm sorry,
Um,
quick side note. Like, did she give off any type of like energy? Did you feel, other than being afraid because there was someone there that shouldn't have been there, did you feel like benevolence or fear or anger? Just a presence. She was just there.
she was just there. And as a kid, that just freaked the fuck out of me.
The watcher.
But as much as my mother and my brother and that part of my family thinks this is a bunch of papakui, they believe that this woman never left the house.
Your mom does not believe in ghosts.
My mother does not.
She doesn't even believe in the Pennsylvania Dutch hex signs that she has in her house.
She thinks they're beautiful portraits that the beautiful people of Pennsylvania created, and they have no purpose whatsoever other than beauty. But anyway,
But she knew that ghost was there, recognized her as a resident of, oh wow. You're blowing my mind here, Chelle.
her name is Clara the ghost. Clara the ghost. So because my mom actually went and found her name and stuff. So because we were that curious, and everybody who's been at my mother's house. So, fast forward a few years.
So wait. You just said everyone who's been at the house. Are you trying to say they all have an experience with her?
My brother, my sisters, my stepfather, my mother, all have. I have. So fast forward, as you know, at one point I had owned a house right down the street from my mother.
Mm-hmm.
So my mother had a gas station across from her house. As you know, my mother currently does the half of the year down south, half of the year in New York. My children were my oldest was probably 16, which would have made my youngest 13 or so at the time. And my mother was in Tennessee for the winter. And the kids and I had to stop at the gas station on the way somewhere. And, we're at the gas station. Everybody's going to look over and look at grandma's house for a few minutes while we're sitting there. I get in the car after pumping gas, getting ready to go. And my son, who was the younger of the two kids, goes, "Mom, why is there someone in grandma's attic window?"
Ooh.
And I'm like, "What?" Like, my first thought was, "What are you talking about? Grandma's in Tennessee."
The house is empty.
Then my daughter goes, "Yeah, Mom, Clara's in the grandma's window." And I'm like, "What?" And I look over and I see a female figure in my mother's attic window.
Wow. When no one was in the house.
When we know. And at that time, I was the only one who had access to the house in the winter.
Did you go check it out to see if there was an intruder?
No, I knew who it was, and I wasn't going in there. I knew. I wasn't no fool. And that's when it kind of came out that when my kids would stay at my mother's, my kids would see her. And I was like, "Oh my God, why didn't you ever tell me that?" And so my kids would have experiences every time they'd stay at my mother's. But like, we literally were all across the street at the gas station looking over, seeing this translucent figure of an older woman in the attic window, staring out, looking at us, pumping gas across the street. Because what it was like she was looking at us specifically. That was the one thing I remembered about that, is that it was almost like she was looking at us. You know what I mean?
Wow.
No, I just wanted to just kind of end it with present day. My mother still does the half year in New York, half year in Tennessee. And my mother has rigged her house now with a camera system, and things have flown across the room, and she has seen human shapes kind of floating across her security camera.
Wow.
I love orbs. Let's not get into a discussion. I still love them.
Have you guys ever challenged an entity?
I have, not that one.
Well, I'm pretty sure that the void was some sort of parasitic entity.
Do you think it attached itself to you?
Yeah, I think it attached itself to that place, and it just sort of dwelled there. Like, I think of it as like an interdimensional leech that feeds on fear. It has no real intelligence at all. It's just a parasite, but it's something in its biology or its cosmology. Who fucking knows when you're dealing with higher dimensions or lower ones? Something that exists outside of normal space-time as we understand it, isn't bound by the same physical laws and can feed off something abstract like fear. And I think that something like that, our brains are wired to find patterns in the chaos. So when something is producing a phenomenon, that something must be processed. And we translate it into a best fit. So
Something that we can understand better.
right. So for most people, it's just an inky blackness because that's like the most. We're terrified. We're instinctually terrified of darkness.
That's true. It's a safety mechanism. It's the
Exactly.
primal brain trying to keep us safe from our own curiosity because the world around us is inherently a dangerous
Right.
place.
Right. You could fall. You could, fall off a cliff. You could be attacked by a wild animal. You could, step on something sharp and cut your foot open, which in that time and in age was a death sentence.
Yeah.
Yeah.
From the little demons that would get inside your blood. I think it's really interesting how much our stories kind of parallel. I'm going to tell you my story and see if you can find where I talk about a house, a staircase, some inky blackness, and family that sees things together. How fun.
Okay.
So I mentioned earlier the house that I grew up in for a little bit of my childhood. It was also the house that my grandparents had purchased back in the early 40s, and they raised their family there. Then my dad had it for a little while and had his young family there. And then when my parents divorced, he lived there off and on for a long time. So this house was in our family for a good 50 plus years.
Is this the house I've been to before?
Yes, it is.
Oh my God. I love this house.
And this is another Ouija board story. So you're going to like this
house.
one. Chelle knows this house because the hauntings here are very well known. My whole family knows, everyone's got a ghost story from this house. My dad is one of 9 children. Every single one of them and their spouses have a ghost story or supernatural story about the house. I have 40 plus cousins, and every single one of them has at least one, if not more, stories of ghostly happenings.
I have a ghost story about this house.
Anyone who spends any amount of time in this house will have a paranormal story to tell after they've left. You just need a few hours. Chelle spent the night. So this house was built in 1920. It's in Seneca Falls, New York, kind of right near the Women's Rights Memorial Park. When I was a kid, it had been a church, and then it was a laundromat, ironically enough. And and then the other half of the Memorial Park is now open green space, and that used to be a movie theater there. So I would kind of cut through the laundromat and the alley behind the laundromat to get to the movie theater. But that's now the Women's Rights Memorial Park. That kind of gives you a place right near there in Seneca Falls, New York. House was built in 1920, and my family moved in. My grandparents had a couple young children. They were pregnant with their 3rd child, and it was in the late 40s, I believe. And they found this house in Seneca Falls, super cheap. And as they were looking at the house, the couple that owned it told them part of the reason why it was so cheap. They're telling them the story of the family before them that had owned it. And the story goes that the couple before them had purchased the house in the early 40s, and young couple wanted to start a family. The husband worked, wife stayed home. Husband comes home from work one day early, unexpectedly, and he's walking up the staircase. Now, this staircase in this house has been replaced 6 times that I can think of, which is a little unusual for any house.
Yeah.
So he's walking up the original staircase. And as you walk up the stairs, you go again into kind of a great room, and there's 3 bedrooms that come off that great room. One of those bedrooms has a door that faces directly the stairs. So as you come up the stairs, he's treated to an ever increasing view of his wife and the neighbor guy having a good time in the guest bed.
Oh no.
Yeah. So he doesn't say a thing,
God.
Doesn't say a word, goes back downstairs, goes to the back room, and gets his hunting rifle and brings it upstairs and proceeds to kill his wife and the neighbor. Then he goes to the garage and gets a length of rope and hangs himself in the stairwell. And this couple's telling my grandparents this as they're thinking about buying the house. My grandparents are like, why did you buy this house then? And like, well, it stood empty for a long time. It was very, very cheap. So we bought it, replaced the staircase, So staircase number 2, replaced the staircase, redid the bedrooms, and we had a great deal. And things have been a little weird, but it's been good. They wouldn't go and elaborate, supposedly. My grandparents were like, okay, fine, we'll buy the house. So they buy the house and proceed to raise 9 children in the house. And again, every single one of them has stories of things turning off and on that shouldn't, furniture being moved when no one's in the room, seeing ghostly figures. In particular, someone in the stairwell, sometimes seen as just a dark mass or a dark figure hanging in the stairwell, and a young woman who, particularly the younger children, would see the young woman, and an older woman. And those are different stories. So when I was in my early 20s, I was kind of in and out of college and in and out of jobs, didn't really have anywhere to go. And my dad offered for me to stay at this house. He and my grandfather lived there, but neither of them were ever there. They were both kind of off staying at other places. So I figured this is a good deal. I'll go stay there. So I'm staying in not the bedroom that faces the stairs, but one of the back bedrooms. And one of my friends decides that she's going to stay with me all the time. She doesn't exactly live there, but she's never really gone either. So we're hanging out one night. Nobody's home. It's summertime. So this friend's basically living with me, right? And she knows all the stories. And as everyone does as we go there, we get out my grandmother's Ouija board and we hop up on the bed and we decide we're going to do the Ouija board and see if we can contact any of the spirits in the house.
Why do people think that's a good idea? It's never a good idea.
We thought it was a great idea.
Yeah, so didn't we the time you and I hung out at your dad's house. Also not a good idea.
Oh, yeah. And that turned out scary too.
Right.
So I'm a baby witch. I think everything's going to be just fine. So we're sitting on the bed. We got the Ouija board out. We're smoking some pot. Nothing happens. Nothing moves. I'm like, all right, let's try again. So we set the mood. We light some incense. We light some candles. We smoke more pot. Nothing happens. It's getting later. I'm fucking bored. It is hot as hell in that room. Again, summertime, New York, no air conditioning, super hot and stuffy. So my idea is let's go out to the back porch and sit on the porch, get a nice cool breeze. We'll get high out there, look at the stars and chill. A friend is like, all right, let's go do that. So we get up off the bed, we're getting our weed, we're getting our shoes, and we hear something fall and look over and the planchette has fallen off the bed onto the floor. And I'm thinking, that's weird. I'd swear they were in the middle of the bed, but must have moved it when we got up. And friend is like, ooh, the spirits want us to talk to it again. And I'm like, oh, haha, right. So we sit down, we decide we're going to ask it questions again. So again, sit down in the middle of the bed, put our fingers on the planchette. This time it wants to move. And I'm thinking, okay, she thinks this is funny, right? So I'm like, okay, hi, what's your name? And it shoots over to no. All right, haha, funny. So I'm like, okay, you don't want to talk to us? Don't want to tell us your name? That's fine. How old are you? And it shoots over to no. So now I'm getting a little more pissed because it's moving really strongly under my fingertips, right? I know she's got to be pushing it. And I'm just like, this is dumb. If you're going to push it, at least make it funny or scary or something. This is just dumb.
Quit fucking with me kind of thing.
Right? So I'm like, all right, whatever. So this is just stupid. Let's just go outside. And I throw the planchette, I grab the planchette and I kind of toss it at my friend. I'm like, haha, let's go outside. Let's just go smoke. This is stupid. And she's like, okay, no problem. Sets the planchette down. We both get up again. We're getting ready to go. And this time we hear a door downstairs slam hard enough. When you slam a door in a small house and the windows kind of rattle. Mm-hmm. It did that. There's only 3 doors downstairs. There's the front door, which was locked. We're 2 20-somethings alone. We locked all the doors. There's a back door, locked. And then there's the bathroom door, which is shitty and sticks and barely even fucking closes. You can't slam it. So I don't even know what door slammed. So we're both like, that's really creepy and weird. And we're like, I think maybe we should go check. And kind of psyching each other up like, okay, we'll go check. So we go out into this great room and it's got one of those pull lights in the middle of the room. And we're on the far side and we've got to kind of go to the pole light in the middle. And then the stairwell is on the other side of the room. Only it's really pitch black over by the stairwell, darker than it should be. There's a window near us and the moonlight's coming in, but it almost seems like it stops halfway. And it just literally seems too black on the other side. And it almost seems like it's moving, And I'm thinking I've smoked way too much fucking pot. So I'm kind of inching forward, all creeped out, and I pull the cord to turn on the light, and the cord comes off in my hand. And I'm short. There's no fucking way I'm reaching up there to get this cord. And I'm like, I think it's gotten even darker over there. I'm pretty sure it's even blacker. Now, at this time, my dad has taken out the staircase again and has replaced it with a wrought iron spiral staircase. It's not safe to walk on, even when you can fucking see. I'm not going to go down it in the pitch black. There's no way. Plus, that's kind of creepy black. So I'm thinking, you know what? I'm too stoned. I'm going to have my friend lead. Obviously, I'm seeing things. She's probably can see just fine. So I turn to look at her to follow her down the stairs, and she is staring wide-eyed, mouth open at the stairwell. And she looks at me and she says, "Do you fucking see that? Why is it so dark over there?" And I'm like, "Oh, fuck no. Nope, nope, nope." And I push her back into the room, shut the door behind us, and I lock it. I'm like, no, there's no way. There's no way. Shut the door, lock it, turn around. Friend is now standing in the middle of the room staring at the floor next to the bed. And I'm like, oh, fuck, what now? And I look over and the Ouija board's on the floor and the planchette is on no. And we had left it in the middle of the bed. I knew for a fucking fact we had left it in the middle of the bed. At this point, I'm losing my shit. I'm like, you know what? I have never done a fucking room cleansing, banishment, and sealing in my entire goddamn life. We threw everything we had, sat in the corner with our sage and our salt and our crystals, smoking pot all night long. We're like, I am not leaving this room ever. So the sun finally comes up. We stretch. We're like, okay, obviously we smoked a little too much. We psyched ourselves out. That was dumb. Open the door. Everything's fine. The house is full of sunlight. Go downstairs. We are like half giggling, half kind of scared still, joking with each other like, oh, haha, that was so stupid. We make some coffee. And we're like, all right, let's go on the back porch. My dad had a whole garden in the back, right? Lots of tomato plants, some other plants. It was fenced in, kind of really private in the back. The porch I wanted to go to. So we get our coffee, we go to the back porch, we sit down, we're kind of joking with each other still. And I notice that some of the plants are trampled. So I go over and there's a tree on the one side next to the fence on the off side of the garden. And right near that tree, a bunch of like 3-4 plants are trampled. Like, what the fuck? Did a raccoon or a dog or something get in here? But there's boot prints in the dirt. And next to the tree, there were some cigarette butts. Where those cigarette butts, when you looked up, you could see my bedroom window and you wouldn't be seen. I don't know what the fuck was going on that night, but I'm glad we didn't leave the bedroom.
Yeah.
I do know that, I was not that particular friend. Thank God, because I know that friend. Didn't want to be that friend. But I know one time I stayed at that house. And I believe I ended up sleeping, well, we'll call it that, on the first floor, maybe the first floor in a back bedroom. I was in a back bedroom at the back of the house.
Yes, that's where the rifle was kept in this supposed murder-suicide story.
I joke and I say, oh yeah, I slept at Layla's dad's house. I did not sleep at Layla's dad's house. I laid in bed frightened for my life all night until dawn at Layla's dad's house. Sleep, no. There's something there that is angry and mean, and it wants to take it out on everybody there. And I did not like being there. I remember being up in that second floor, big room, great room, getting really high with your dad. And the higher I got, it was almost like the more scared I got to be up on the second floor. That is the most oppressive house that I have attempted to sleep in. Because it was whatever's there wouldn't let me sleep. I almost felt like laying in bed, that there was just something above me, just kind of like growly and, you ain't fucking sleeping, you fucking bitch. Like kind of like that attitude. And it was fun to hang out with your dad and we had a good time, but it is not a place that you are going to get any sleep at.
Like a spider.
Yeah. And much like your house, Tom, it has both good and bad, I think. Like as scary as that situation was for me, looking on it, I almost feel like it was just trying to keep me from going out back. I feel like it was just trying to keep me from leaving the house.
Whereas I felt threatened at your dad's house. I was scared.
People have had both experiences. There are both kinds that happen there. Now, I've done digging. When I was younger, I tried to find, if there's any history of a murder suicide there, and I couldn't find anything then. And I figured now I have more tools at my disposal. I would try again. And so I did look, and I did find that there were gun murder, shotgun murder, and hanging suicide right around the time period in the 40s. I found it in the county coroner's reports for Seneca Falls, but I couldn't find any news articles or anything. And I would think that double murder suicide would be big news
in that period of time.
Right. And so I don't know, but everyone in my family knew that story. Some of the neighbors knew the story. I mean, it was common urban legend. Now, my father is a well-known teller of tales. He does have a book published. He does have some poems and short stories published, and is known to spin a yarn. So could he have heard something and embellished it, and then other people heard it and picked up on it? Maybe. But he was a kid when this story started, so I don't know. I did also find, now this is fun, I did find a true tale, a true news tale back in 1896, before that part of Seneca Falls was built. So 1896, I found a newspaper article titled, "Killed a Woman and Himself." So a man named Thomas Pelton was apparently pissed off because Minnie Mansell had scorned him, and she had said, "Nope, don't want you around." He then went and killed her, and then killed himself at a place, Edward Minder's farm, the Minder's farm. And both were in the employ of Mrs. Minders from that farm. And the newspaper article says, quote, "He was infatuated with her, but she gave him no encouragement. He threatened a few days ago that he would kill her." Now, two fun coincidences. The Minders farm is where my house was built, on Minders Street. And this article that I found, I was researching just recently, and I looked at the date. The date was March 16th, 1896. Guess what day I found it?
That's right, because you texted me and you were like, "Oh my God, this was today." And I was like, whoa, no shit.
March 16th. So something very similar did happen in that area. And I can find some hints that maybe what had supposedly happened in the house could be true, but no definitive proof. But some interesting coincidences.
Now, the question is, how do you take someone with a really scientific mind frame and explain that to them in a way that will satisfy their rigorous demands for reality? Because I have never figured that out.
You can't.
You can't. I like to think I have a little bit of a scientist mindset. I do
too.
And I can't explain that. And I think that's why I like these stories, why Chelle and I like talking about them, because I don't know what happened. Could I have knocked that off? Yes. Could my friend have been pushing it? Yes.
But I've also had my own experience at a completely different time in that house, which makes me believe that not only is what I experienced some crazy shit, but that everything Laylla experienced before and after absolutely happened, because having my own experience there makes me not doubt any of her experiences there. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And that's what I think is interesting about all of our stories, is the components that are so similar and happened at different parts of, granted, all in kind of the East Coast, but happened in different cities, happened at different times, but there's so many similarities. And you and your sister had the same experiences. People that go to that house in Seneca Falls all have very, very similar experiences. My many family, people, your family, so many people in that place. How do you explain that?
You can't just explain it off that one person's nuts. We can't say, well, Tom's nuts. Tom's not nuts because Tom has a sister who has similar stories. You know what I mean? I mean, once you start having multiple people have these experiences, you can't just negate them as easily anymore.
Oh yeah. And it wasn't just my sister, it was my mom. I had friends, my sister had friends, family members, just, it was an ongoing kind of thing where people would be like, yeah, I saw something weird upstairs. I don't know what the hell it was. That was kind of freaked me out. I kind of don't want to hang out here anymore. Like
science or not, it's just hard to kind of blow it off when so many people are having so many experiences. You know what I mean?
There is a cult of science that is very, very present in the world where I want to be careful how I say this because I don't want to come off as a complete whack job, but we can lay things at science's feet for testing, but not everything is appropriate to be tested under those rigors.
I get what you're saying. Absolutely.
I feel ya.
And people say, well, you can't. And I say, you can. That's what magic systems exist for. The problem with magic systems is that they deal with the infinite, and you can't account for the infinite in math. So you're never, ever going to crack the code. No matter how hard you try, no matter how much you want to quantify this, you can't. And that's going to drive you fucking crazy. And it's the reason that we're not exploring the stars right now, honestly.
It's the reason why we need art, why we need philosophy, why we need music, because all of those are forms of magic. And it's I know they can be quantified. Music obviously has a lot of parallels to math, but
that's why we need Eminem.
Yes, we do. We need all different kinds. It's true. We need all of that. And I do have a very mathematical brain. I like things to fit into a pattern. I like things to make sense. I like to be able to find the whys and the reasons. And I guess that's maybe also why I'm so interested in the things that don't seem to fit. You know, they're fun.
Yeah.
I like the anomalies.
I don't consider myself to be superstitious or I'm very skeptical, but felt experience can't be denied. Just because it can't properly be quantified does not mean that it doesn't exist.
Right.
You know, what's that? Okay, so we all know when you first hold your child for the first time, there is a release of oxytocin that bonds you to that child for life. Okay, so that first few moments after the child is born, it is critical for mom and baby to have touching contact, right?
Skin to skin bonding.
Right. Now, that doesn't describe anything about how it feels. And no language that does is quantifiable. Oh, on a scale of 1 to 10, how happy are you? Totally subjective. There is no way to measure it. There's no little ruler that you can go, oh, they're a 5-1. Okay, good. So, and can you see that too? Oh, no, I can't repeat it. You know why? Because it's totally subjective. It exists in a realm of abstracts, and we don't know how to deal with that scientifically. And we have built up this cult of materialism in the West that is very, very much an altar to ego, actually. It's the you buy it now, don't wait, order today, you might have these side effects. That whole sweep of society that we're looking at with all the consumerism,
you'll get it in 3 days.
Exactly. All the culture, all the bullshit that's swarming around us constantly, making us forget what we really are, probably by design to some degree. Yeah. That, they want you to forget about that. They want you to forget that shit's going on. So
maybe that's why you like McKenna so much. Wasn't he all about that, like letting go of that materialism and basically go out and touch grass personified?
Yeah. He was he was very much a hippie.
Yeah.
And you have to, when you listen to people like that, you have to then ask yourself, when is the last time I stood barefoot in the grass?
And why does that feel so amazing?
Because you're connected to your roots, to true earth.
Very much so.
To soil, to clay.
We're almost to feet on the grass time.
Right? I love spring for that. I liked your analogy with the magic of holding your child and being able to describe it in scientific terms. That's something that I do with the moon. I love the moon. The moon it was just the full moon last night. I danced under it.
Yeah.
It's very, very magical to me. And just because I know that it's the light of the sun, I know why eclipses happen. I know the science behind it, but that doesn't make it any less magical. almost makes it more magical to me, understanding it and then standing underneath it and still feeling that rush of emotion, that rush of happiness and joy, just seeing all that, moonlight shimmering on everything. It's
built into the human consciousness on such a deep level. It's so primordial, and the energy that you're experiencing, what you're seeing is like a model of a bigger system. So what you're seeing on this level is happening on a sub level and on a higher level in a similar fashion. So the exchange of energy, the way everything's shining, and it's kind of like this little box, right, that just has thousands and thousands of lenses and mirrors in it. And if you move one, everything changes, because the way the lights interact changes the whole show, like a big hologram. And that's our universe in a nutshell, in my opinion. It's a show. It's a big mirror show. We're all being shown the same image from different angles, perspectives, and under different lights. And we're all seeing the same thing. And the beauty of it is that all of us are kind of like the same person, just looking at it through all those different lenses and different time periods.
All trying to experience the same thing.
Yeah. It's one consciousness trying to see itself subjectively. Because how can you look in the mirror if you are the mirror? There has to be a me and a not me in order to perceive. So we have to, you know what I mean? So that's why we exist, in my opinion. We're like education for the Godhead, and being able to actively take a part in the creative process involved in that is so overwhelmingly cool and powerful and enabling. And I mean, there's so many ways to do it, and some of them are very ritualistic based, and some of them are as simple as going and taking a walk in nature.
They're all paths on the same mountain to the same top, just a different path to get there.
Yep.
And you choose what you put into it is what you get out of it. So the more intent you put into it, and the more, I think with intent comes effort.
Yes.
Because at the end of stuff that I've done, like rituals I've done, I felt fucking exhausted, like pouring sweat, just like I am done.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Well, it's like taking a major test. It's the same type of energy expenditure as taking a big test. You're working. It's mental work, but it's still work.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I think there's an emotional element to it as well, like an emotional component that you're tapping from everything, I guess.
So the best magic is the most exhausting magic.
We have to kind of raise that energy and getting your emotions involved and getting your endorphins going, getting everything in your body moving towards a purpose and trying to direct that energy to something. You need to involve emotions. You need to involve thought. You need to kind of and it involves a lot of pushing, a lot of energy work. And that's going to manifest itself in being tired and being sweaty.
Yeah.
As if you've run a marathon or taken the SATs.
Yeah. What was I going to say?
No, but should probably get close to wrapping up.
Yeah.
And I know we could keep going, but yeah.
So we've talked a lot about science and weed and ghosts and weird family home experiences. I loved today's show. I think that Tom, you're awesome. We loved having you here. You better get back here again sometime.
I will.
We definitely are looking forward to coming back to your show. Again, story time with Tom and Mike. Anything you want to tell us and tell folks out there about you guys' show? Plug your show for a minute before we wrap up.
Okay. If I can get my voice back.
When you come on our show, you smoke too much weed. That's the problem.
Yeah. I smoke too much weed anyway. So story time with Tom and Mike, just to give you sort of like the elevator pitch, is a show in which two best friends make each other laugh and entertain each other and you with stupid theories and sketches and news of the week items and just general conversation on all those topics. Occasionally we stray into political
Dicks.
or, well, dicks, yes, that comes up quite a bit actually. Urethral sounding is a very common element. I love to complain about Joe Rogan because I intensely hate that man. And and it's just a lot of fun. Give it a chance, please. My life would be so much better if I could do this for a living. So,
Yeah.
hopefully you can get past the I don't know how I feel about my theme song.
I think it's great. It reminds me of like this awesome like 80s TV show.
Yeah.
It definitely gives me that retro 80s vibe, and I love it. I love it. Yeah. We're glad to have Tom here today. Definitely, to all of our friends, all of our listeners, our people, check out Storytime with Tom and Mike. Laylla and I will be guesting on their show on March 25th. What episode was that? 139?
Yes, 139.
The guacamole debacle.
Yes.
Listen, people, because I explain why I think guacamole is the secretion of the devil. So check that out. I do. So check that out. I don't know what we're doing next. I haven't thought that far ahead. I smoked too much to plan for the next show.
That's okay. Our next show is going to be probably a surprise for us and everyone else. How's that?
Surprise!
So if you like today's show, please rate us, give us 5 stars, head over to Storytime Tom and Mike, show them a little bit of love.
Instagram, The Stoned Witches Hour. And then Twitter is The Stoned Witches. And then you can email us at thestonedwitcheshour@gmail.com.
Send us your story ideas, send us your comments.
Send us your weed.
Send us your weed suggestions, and we'll see you next time on the Stoned Witches Hour.
I just want to give a shout out to our guy, Silicone Pipe Dan. Was it Silicone Pipe Dan?
Shout out to Silicone Pipe Dan and to Lee Ann, our coolest, most devoted listener from Binghamton, New York. We appreciate you guys, and the next bud's for you.
If you're going to do a quick shout out, I have to mention Slicky Ricky in Canada, my gaming buddy. Love you, Ricky, and Phoenix. She's my homegirl. Love her.
Thanks for listening to the Stoned Witches Hour with Chelle and Laylla. If you like what you heard, please rate us and consider giving us a review. It really helps the show out, and we'll definitely take a toke of the kindest bud in your honor.